Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Markar B1923 reinforcing pivot. And this is shown in a US2G, which is a zinc finish. So this sort of item is extremely common to be used on doors where the top hinge has failed. Typically exterior metal doors. The top hinge in the door and the frame, the top hinge always takes the greatest amount of load in doing the job of the operation of the door. It's not uncommon to see a hinge plate become detached from the inner construction of the door. The welds could fail as a result of abuse or excessive use or years of use, etc. More commonly on the door than the frame, generally because the gauge of the steel of the frame is thicker, so there's better penetration of welding on a frame versus a door. You go with an 18 gauge door, sometimes even a 20 gauge door, that hinge plate can come off, given enough use or abuse. The Markar B1923 full surface reinforcing pivot solves that problem, is the bottom line. It is a component that is non-handed and looks like this. I'm going to show you the piece parts first. This is the, let's just start from here. This is the header portion, okay? Let's throw a tape measure on this before we move further. If you're dealing with typical steel doors, this is going to fit every time with a, with a 2-inch face. It's about 6 1/4 long, inch and 7/16 high. Overall height would be closer to 1 3/4. Extremely thick material, 3/16 zinc plated steel. Okay. The door portion looks like this. Door portion features this hex, well, it's not hex, pardon me, this Allen wrench pin in it that's threaded on the inside. Let me put the tape measure on it, then we'll talk about what this is for, or how it's attached. So about 4 3/8 overall width there. Not that this is really an important dimension, but gives you an idea. 5 5/8. Overall height is going to be about 1 3/4. So when you marry these two parts together, that goes on the header just like this, regardless of it being a left-hand reverse door or it being a right-hand reverse door. This is only ever mounted on the pull side. This pin right now, which is threaded, is set on this side of the door plate. That means it's going to go like this. Okay? So the way that you're looking at this operation right now would be for a left-hand reverse door. Here's the header, here's the door. Door is going to swing out towards you like that. Okay? From your perspective, looking at this video, this is a left-hand reverse. To make this the opposite hand, you simply remove that plug, put it over there, and rock and roll like this. And now you're looking at a right-hand reverse. Okay? It's threaded, just use an Allen wrench, you'll be able to remove that. Includes fasteners. You're going to get, without taking these out of the package, you're going to get 2 through bolts with machine screws. That is for sure going to be for the door portion. Okay? I would spread them out. You could have a compromised door, so maybe strategically locate your through bolts to go to the strongest point of that situation. You might need to reinforce it even further with a backing plate that you might make or provide yourself. You're going to also get machine screws, which are going to be a 1/4 20 flathead machine screw. You can see one right there. Then you're going to get like, I'm going to say that's a number 14 wood screw. Okay. Now it's a sheet metal thread, but you know, I wouldn't be using those. I'd be drilling and tapping if I could. The good part about this is that your door might have a closer reinforcement at the top of the door, so you might have some extra steel there. But that's how these get installed. There is a link below this video to the instructions, which shows everything important about it in terms of the handing that we just discussed. That's all there. Okay, we've just discussed all that, and that's at length. Okay, then on the opposite side, they're talking about installation. You don't want to eyeball this installation. You don't want to just put it up there and hope that it works. The reasoning is that the pivoting axis, you probably know where I'm going with this, but the pivoting axis of this point needs to be plumb with the pivoting axis of the other hinges. So you've got to install it, you know, as they're showing here. Sure, you know, I've had people put that up there and operate the door, and one person operates the door. But the problem is, if you've got a compromised hinge, you really can't do that. The door's not going to be swinging well to start with. So what they're saying is, locate the pivot on the frame, the header portion. Hold your combination square in corner of frame and place installation template against square exactly as shown. Spot the holes with a center punch. Here you go. Got to have that. Okay. Flush with underside of jamb on your hinge edge of your door. This piece of paper, which is full size, is going to scale that to be correct with a typical steel door and frame. Center punch. Make sure you center punch the hole so that when you start to drill them, your drill bit doesn't walk a little bit before it pierces through, because the material thickness you're drilling through is likely to be not insignificant. Drill the holes. Metal frame, you know, they're talking about tapping the holes in the header. That could be a challenge if you've got a grout-filled header. Keep that in mind. You might have more to deal with than you'd like to. I've had clients that welding is in their background very strongly, and while I don't recommend it, they'll just weld that to a door and frame. And it could work very likely. You know, the back door of a restaurant or a nightclub, etc. Those guys, you know, they want it to be as secure as possible. They want it to be as fast as possible. And whether or not taking this off a year from now is important. If you weld it, it's kind of hard to remove it easily. They don't care. They just want it to work now, work fast. And so a lot of guys will go about welding this sort of operation because it's exactly that. Okay, so just spoke about welding this. Not advised, but some people do it. Drilling and tapping everything is the preferred way to go. Moving on, step one is template and locate everything with your center punch. Locate your holes. Drill your holes per the schedule. Below that, reference to either a metal frame situation or a wood frame. Unlikely you've got a wood frame. I don't hardly ever see that. Step 3, with the door in place, check to be sure that hinges are firmly attached and there is proper clearance between the door and frame at all sides, including the bottom of the door. So step 3, what they're saying there in terms of the proper clearance. You want to make sure a typical, if we're using a typical steel door and frame as a guide, 1/8 inch margin typically between the hinge jamb and the door and the strike jamb in the door, 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/32 depending if the door is a beveled door, that sort of situation. But 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch at the top, and then a standard clearance at the bottom. And what they're saying here, if door tends to sag away from the hinge, because that's probably why you're installing this pivot, is because the door is hanging, wedge it, shim it, get it straight. Get it straight, rock solid, all the way around so that the door doesn't move. Okay, when you are doing your final assembly. So you've got your header drilled. Step 4 is to place the door portion of the pivot on the door and move into the position such that the pin enters the bronze bushing. This is attached. They want you to place this so that the pin enters the bronze bushing. Okay. When properly aligned with lower part, marking light contact with bearing flange, hold firmly in place, parallel with head of door, and mark hole locations. So they're saying that, you know, you should make a small amount of contact between the top of this plate and your bushing. You want to make sure that everything is margined off correctly. And then at that point, mark these holes and move to step 5 and to drill those holes. Repeat the drilling from step 2, blah, blah, blah. Use 2, okay, so the note. Use 2 sleeve bolts furnished with each pivot. Use as required for hollow metal or mineral core doors, meaning a fire-rated wood door. See figure 3. Okay, no problem. Drill 1/4 inch hole through the door and large hole on side opposite of the pivot to 3/8. What they're saying there is you're going to drill your 1/4 inch hole through the door. This side of the sex bolt needs to be 3/8 of an inch. So the side opposite this, which would be the push side, on that side only, make that hole 3/8. Just drill it in a 1/4 inch. That's all you need to do is just clear that hole. So you'll have a 1/4 inch hole on the pull side of the door and a 3/8 of an inch hole through the push side of the door. Yes. And at that point, you're installed. You're good to go. Attach everything. You're rock solid. These pivots are really phenomenal because what they do is they allow a significantly longer useful service life out of a door. Some people will go in and re-weld that top hinge and keep going, and that's great. That works. But these anchor pivots, these reinforcing pivots, not anchor pivots, but these reinforcing pivots are really worth their weight in gold because a new door, a new frame, hundreds, thousands, whereas a piece of hardware like this, $50, $75 plus your installation time. And they're really not that hard. It can be a pain to install them if you've got grout in the header or if your door is so lousy that it's just so destroyed at the top where it's just going to take extra work to get it all straight. But it's good to go. It works. Very popular. A lot of people do it. To me, it makes sense. Now, architecturally, I don't think you're going to see this on the front of a retail space because it looks terrible, or that's a subjective statement. But boy, the back of a strip mall, if I'm a landlord, I'm going to put these on every single time because they work. Enough talking about it. If you have any questions on the Markar B1923 US2G zinc full surface reinforcing pivot, zinc plated, or any other Markar product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.